Fire with Dr. Ninja Turtle. Thank you for coming by this week, where we're going to talk about some other books that I have on playlists that are free that you can listen to by going to my playlist. And I renamed it Classic Books. And so I am looking for, no, it's showing I'm live. So welcome everybody to Dr. Ninja Turtle's Friday Morning Live. And of course I forgot to turn on my ring light, which I forget sometimes when I'm going live. There we go. Now we've got where you can see me a little bit better there. Excuse my coughing this morning. I'm going to start my poll question. And 1 second, I'm getting myself together here, which I normally should have already had it together, but this morning we are a couple of minutes behind. So what I have in my other playlist is I have books that I found on YouTube for free. And also I have, and these are real books. The other ones were audio books that are, let's say, AI created for a YouTube channel related to finance. These are actual books written by people that you would normally go to Amazon. Good morning, Lisa J. Of course, I'm going to talk about you a little bit later, only because one of my financial books talks about start where you are. Start with small amounts of money. And that's how I started. And that always reminds me of you every time I think about where I started and just how a very small amount of money really adds up and snowballs. And people just do not realize that $5 a week, or in my case, $5 a month, that's where I started. Good morning, Julie. And thank you for being here. I'm a little bit late getting going into my topic. And I've got this whole throat thing going on this morning, so I do apologize for all that. I took my allergy medicine, but I still have throat things going on. But what I'm going to talk about are some of my favorite books. And the reason that they're in my playlist of classic financial books is because some of these, and I'm going to get to my favorite a little bit later, that's going to be how I wrap this thing up, is talking about my favorite. And what it was, I'm just giving a little teaser here, is it was 21 Secrets. Now, this was a free CD that was offered through the mail. And I ordered the free CD 38 years ago, maybe 39 years ago. I ordered this free CD. And I've listened to these secrets for 39 years. Now, what I did was I went and I found it on YouTube. See, that's what you can do with our technology today, which we did not have that many years ago. And I found it, and I'm going to talk about it at the end of this live, because this really changed my life from all those years, because I've listened to it throughout the years as a reminder to keep me on track, to do what I've been trying to do, which is my goal setting. And so one of the first things that I want to talk about is my real estate books. So I'm going to get into that first, because I just found this one last night. I lost track of one of my real estate books. I'm not sure. Let's just say these are regular books that you would buy on Amazon. Sometimes YouTube shuts these books down because, let's just say, for copyright reasons, or the author comes in and says, hey, you can't have my book being read on YouTube without me getting royalties. So I had this book a couple of years ago on YouTube, and I think it got shut down from wherever it was. However, last night, as I was getting ready for this live, I found the book again. So I'm bringing it back, and it's in my playlist again. And remember, like I said last week, is I don't get any watch hours if you're listening to these audiobooks in my playlist, but that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to maximize my watch hours. I'm here to share information. And so, the first book that I want to talk about that's in my playlist is How to Quit Your Job with Rental Properties. And, it talks about replacing your 9 to 5 income. And that was a strategy that I always thought would happen, but never really believed it. My first rental I had for 18 years before I realized that, well, it wasn't quite, it was 18 years probably before I sold it. But for many, many years, that was the only rental I had. And let's say 10 years to 15 years, something in that area, it was the only rental I had because I didn't know how you get a second rental. I had no knowledge on that. And so I just held on with like a death grip to one rental and said, that's it, I've got one. I'll someday maybe figure out how to get two. And now I have quite a few more than two, but I didn't know. I just didn't know. And so a book like this, How to Quit Your Job with Rental Properties, is for people who are, one, afraid to get into rentals because it's not for the faint of heart. And so at this point, I need to say that last month was my best month ever with rental properties and cash flow coming in. This month, it took a dive. And that's why I do not count on my rental income. It's nice if it happens, it's like cherries on top of the cake. But you cannot rely on rental income the way that I have rental income. Other people have rental income that they can rely on. And so that's why this book, How to Quit Your Job with Rental Properties, it talks about various different ways. You could have short-term rentals, you could have mid-term rentals, you could have long-term rentals. You have to decide what works best for you. You could have house hacking where, you rent out a part of your house just for the summer. And so those kinds of things are the things that we're talking about here. And I should have put my phone on Do Not Disturb because I keep seeing notices come up. And so there's my mistake this week was I meant to put it on Do Not Disturb. And I keep seeing YouTube notices at the top of my screen, which I didn't realize Do Not Disturb, gets rid of those. And so we are going to go, I'm trying to think if I could do a Do Not Disturb and stay in the live. I think I'm just gonna have to wing it today, and hopefully we get through these books. So that was the book, How to Quit Your Job with Rental Properties. Please listen to that audiobook if you're even remotely thinking about rental properties, because it's not for everyone, and I realize that. A lot of people, they will put their money in the stock market and they feel more comfortable not having to deal with people. Because like I said, this month, I had a really bad, let's say, experience with my rental properties. Not only did I have property taxes to pay, which were higher than what I had thought in my head, but because I had more rental properties this year, I didn't calculate the property taxes correctly, so they were higher. And then I had a higher than normal number of renters not paying. It could be because it's Christmas month and they want to have Christmas with their family. But typically, what happens, and this is just in my particular rental portfolio, when a renter doesn't pay 1 month, they'll typically pay double next month. So a lot of times, I'm a little bit short 1 month, but then it all evens out the next month. So, yes, I am expecting quite a lot of money in January from my rentals. However, that doesn't negate the fact that I had low income from my rentals, I had higher than expected maintenance costs, and I had property taxes. So, all three of those add up to a bad month of December for my rental properties. But I have learned, don't rely on rental income. And that's why I keep telling everyone here on my lives that my rentals aren't reliable income. They're variable income, but they're not reliable income just yet. Now, have I had a good year overall with my rentals? Absolutely. One bad month does not make a bad year. But it's like the stock market. You're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. And you have to be committed to going through that. Ah, yes. Julie mentioned that, excuse me again, her favorite money book is A Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. And I ascribe to his teachings because I love that simple path to wealth. You know, I'm in the FIRE movement, and a lot of people in the FIRE movement, not necessarily me, but a lot of people, they believe in, I believe it's FAXIX and chill, which is what J.L. Collins talks about. And what he does is he talks about put your money in the Vanguard mutual fund, which is like the global stock market fund, the total stock market, and just put your money in there and just chill. Right? Now, that will get you good returns, but other people think that they can do better by mixing in some individual stocks or different types of mutual funds. So, people have to do what's comfortable for them. But that book is life changing. So thank you, Julie, for putting that book in the chat because I don't have it here only because it's not available on YouTube in an audiobook form for free. That's sort of my criteria for these books. Oh, VTSAX. Sorry. I knew I messed that up. I knew it. So VTSAX and chill. Right? That's it. You put your money in there with every paycheck or every type of income that you have coming in, you put your money in there and you let it ride. J.L. Collins has built a fortune doing that. And that is for people who do not want to do a whole lot of work. And you all know me, I'm the lazy guy. I don't want to do a whole lot of work. But this is also why I moved to Vanguard, partially because of this. I want to be where J.L. Collins is with the Vanguard. And I someday wanted VTSAX and chill. Right now I'm doing VOO, the ETF at Vanguard, which is similar to VTSAX. But I believe it's just the S&P 500. So I'm doing the S&P 500 as opposed to the total stock market. But I'm also doing it to chill. So that's where I got that from. One of my favorite books that I want to get to here is The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller of Keller Williams Real Estate. And his books are just powerful. They are just powerful. And so he gives a model. He gives a plan, like let's say a 3-step plan or a 4-step plan on how to become a millionaire with real estate. Now, you don't need to be a millionaire. You don't ever have to get to being a millionaire. But what this does is it tells you how to get started. So when I only had one rental property or maybe two rental properties, I had this book. And what it said was, it said, buy a million. Now, I'm not saying you have $1 million and you buy $1 million worth of real estate. What he's saying is, if you can borrow the money from the bank, and let's say you're putting down 20%, get to that owning a million worth of real estate. Now, wherever your market is, that could be 2 properties. That could be 10 properties. It depends on what you're buying and where you live. And where you're buying, not you wouldn't necessarily have to buy where you live, but wherever you're buying properties. And a lot of people like to buy in their backyard. So, so anyway, 1 property, 2 properties, 10 properties, whatever the case may be, but get to that $1 million worth of real estate. Then he said, once you bought $1 million, then you want to own $1 million, right? So you want to own that real estate. And then you pay off that real estate, and then you have $1 million in income coming in. So that's his plan. However, all of that takes time, and people do that in different ways. But the book is motivating to people like me that start with nothing and have very little, that we have something to keep working towards. So for all these years, I just go, give me one more rental, give me one more rental. No, they don't cost much, but give me one more rental. That's all I can afford. So I'm doing what I can afford. However, the book gives me the goals to shoot for. And that's why I love that book. So Create and Relate says she can't stay long. Thank you so much for dropping by. And I get it. I get it. There are so many people going live at the same time, especially in the evening, that I'm opening up 3 or 4 tabs in my Firefox, but I can't participate in 3 or 4 different lives because I can't follow all the conversations. But I open them up so that I'm playing them and supporting people, but it's so hard. It's so hard. And a lot of times, lunchtime is another time that a lot of different people all go live at the same time. And I happen to be going to a meeting that happens at lunchtime, so I can't even be there, but I could leave my phone on in my car. So I do the best I can. So thank you, Create and Relate. So one of the things that Gary Keller talks about is having buying criteria for your real estate. You don't just go out and willy-nilly buy real estate, because that's a recipe for disaster. People have to decide what they're going to do with their real estate and what their end goal is. So my rental properties are low-cost rental properties in a low cost of living area. I'm not buying A-class properties. I'm not buying in San Francisco. I can't afford all that. But I also am not buying short-term rentals because I don't want the work that goes into that. I'm not doing midterm rentals. See, just like VT, SAX, and Chill, I buy long-term rentals that don't cost much money, and I chill. So it's the same thing, is invest your money and just keep investing over the long term. I'm not buying and selling rental properties every year. I'm not flipping properties. There's a method where you buy a property, it's called the Burr method, but you buy a property for very low amount of money, you fix it up with a short-term loan from a private lender, then you go to the bank, you get the property appraised, and then you refinance out of the loan and pay off that short-term lender. And now, maybe you've got a property where you put very little money into it overall. And all this whole process takes about 6 months maybe. So I don't do that because I'm too nervous. I don't want to deal with contractors. So you have to have your own buying criteria. The guy from One Rental at a Time, he says, have a buy box. Okay, here is my bread and butter. 3 bedroom, 2 bath in a B class neighborhood in Cleveland. Okay, that is the buy box. And so that particular investor would only look for 3 bedroom, 2 bath in a B class neighborhood in Cleveland. They're not trying to go to Florida. They're not going down here to Alabama. They're not doing all that. So that's what I'm trying to say is you have to have your own buy box criteria. So the next category that I want to talk about is books about how to become a millionaire. And so the book number 3 is Millionaire Game-Plan. If you're going to become a millionaire or you're going to become wealthy, right? Because not everybody's a millionaire and we're not all saying we're millionaires, right? That's not what we're saying here. What we're saying is we're building wealth. And so building wealth is about having a plan and executing your plan. Someone may build wealth by having stocks in the stock market. Someone else may build wealth by, hopefully I'm still on because people are coming in and going out and I'm just not sure if I'm still on live. Hopefully I'm not buffering or something of that nature. So anyway, the Millionaire Game Plan, you have to have a plan. If you're going to build wealth, you have to have a plan. My plan, oh, thank you, Lisa J. I wasn't sure. Thank you, thank you. My plan is to do it through multiple streams of income. And now, thanks to meeting Lisa J., I'm increasing my stock market portfolio. So that's my latest way that I'm trying to build wealth. But I have the game plan. By rental properties, I have a pension. I'm going to start Social Security where the first check will come in February. All of these are investments towards my future. And so you have to have a game plan if you're going to build wealth, but your game plan has to be what you're comfortable with. Never let anybody tell you to go and do something you're not comfortable with. And so, oh, okay. So thank you, Lisa. I will just call you Lisa. Some people call me Doc. You call me Daryl, which is cool. Great. Call me anything. Doesn't matter. But yes, okay. I'm just going to call you Lisa. So, and that's what Lisa does. You know, Lisa, what I love about her channel, I just keep saying this, is that she talks about putting away small amounts. And that's what I do. That's what I did way back when I had no money. And that's what I still do today because I still don't have any money. I don't care how many years later. You know, I have a lot of equity, but that's not cash flow. That's not cash in my pocket that I can use to go to the grocery store. So what I do today is the same thing that I did many years ago, but it may have more zeros at the end. So instead of putting away $5, I'm putting away $50 every time income comes in. So sometimes I'll get a paycheck, and I have 3 different colleges, as you all know. 2 colleges pay on opposite 2-week time frames. So when I have classes going in these 2 colleges, I have a paycheck coming every single week. Once on Friday, once on Thursday. Once on Friday, once on Thursday, which is a blessing. Another college pays once a month. And they only pay in the last 2 months of the particular semester. So for that college, you have to wait. However, that one check is bigger than the other ones where I get it every week, but I need money every week. Okay, that's just who I am. And so I invest that money every week and I pay my bills and my debts every single week. But here's the deal that relates to this book. I have a plan for the money before the money comes in. So I already know when this paycheck comes in, it's going to Vanguard and I'm going to buy QQQM, because that's already planned. And I get that from books like this that tell you to plan your future, plan your debt payoff, plan your investments. That's why listening to this book, Millionaire Game-Plan, is good. So, yes. Hi, Andy. Great to see you. Thank you, Teresa. Please hit the like button. I keep forgetting to ask people to do that. And so, yes, and Andy talked about that, is that you already know. You know, Dave Ramsey, right? Love Dave Ramsey. I invest a little differently than Dave Ramsey because I don't have cash to buy rental properties. But, and I also don't have a paid off primary residence before I start investing. So I didn't do that the way that Dave Ramsey says that you should do it. But what I am saying is that, oh, thank you, Teresa. So, and you know, Teresa, I tell you, I do that so often. I am on YouTube while driving. So I'm just listening and I can't really comment in people's lives because I'm in their live, but I'm driving. So if I hit a stoplight, then I'll put in a quick little comment, very short comment. So the next book that I'm going to talk about, one, you got to have a plan. Two, you've got to automate it. If you want to put money into Vanguard, automate it. If you're working a 9 to 5, automate it from your paycheck. When I was working for the federal government, I automated my TSP, which is like the 401k. I automated my TSP investment so that it maxed it out. Way back when, it was a $25,000 a year limit. And I maxed out that $25,000 a year out of my paycheck and just automated it. So the book, The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach, right? Listen to that book. It's in my playlist. And he talks about pay yourself first, right? And I had a person come into my comments and say, you pay God first. And I totally agree with that if that's your tradition. No one is saying don't do that. What I am saying is before you pay your bills, you pay yourself. And you make sure you have enough money left over to pay yourself first and pay your bills. See, that's the key. It's not either or. It's not either or. You have to increase that gap. And so I've spent many years increasing the gap. And so I will talk to you all about this right now. This just popped into my head. I'm still doing this philosophy today. One, I talked about planning ahead and knowing where your money's going to go before your money ever arrives. So I'm looking at 2026. And what I did was I started 2025 with a 70% savings rate. So I was saving 70% of all the money that came in. Well, I want to get back to that and try that again. I stopped doing it in April because I bought some rental properties and I said, no, I need to bring this money home to pay off the down payments on these rental properties because that's how I buy rental properties. I put a down payment on them, I pay off the down payment, and then the rental properties pay for themselves after that. That's my plan. Doesn't always work that way, but that's my plan. So I looked at 2026 and I said, yes, I fell off track with my 70% savings rate in 2025. Let's do it again. So I have changed my teaching income at 2 of my 3 colleges so that 100% of my teaching income from these 2 colleges goes directly into their retirement accounts. Now, I just happen to be putting them in Roth accounts. So I'm putting 100% of my teaching income starting in January. See, I've already set this up. So I follow what I'm talking about. You've got to be automatic with your investing. I don't wait until the check comes in and then say, well, I guess I'll decide now today on Friday what I'm going to do with that money. No, I don't even want to see it. I want the money invested and I will live off of the rest. So I pay myself first. Now, the one college that only pays once a month, that's the one where I don't have it 100% going because I need a little bit of money coming in, right? I have to live off of a little bit, but I need a little bit of something. So the majority of my teaching income, let's say 70% of my teaching income goes, and I'll take the little 30% and bring it home. And so that's the premise behind the Automatic Millionaire. And he talks about how automation is a wealth engine because your money starts to compound on each other. So as I'm putting all of this money in, and I'll show everyone in my monthly updates of my retirement accounts, that you will see it grow every month. Not to mention, because I'm invested in aggressive growth funds in those accounts, that's compounding and growing. Not every single month. Sometimes the stock market has a little dip. But overall, throughout the course of a year or 2 years or 3 years, that 70% savings rate is really going to expand my investing and my net worth, which is what I'm growing. At this point in my life, we're just growing net worth at this point. So those are my books on becoming a millionaire or becoming wealthy, because no one is saying that I'm a millionaire or you have to become a millionaire. No, we are trying to retire comfortably. That's what we're trying to do. And so I would rather that you build wealth that will allow you to retire early. That's what my channel is all about. Early retirement comfortably, and that's whatever comfortable is for you. So I have a picture on the thumbnail of this, and I also put this in a community post yesterday where I was at the post office yesterday and there was a Rolls-Royce Bentley parked in front of the post office in my little town. Can you believe that? A tiny town in South Alabama. And last week on my live, at the end of my live, I talked about someday if I'm 80 years old and I sell everything I own, I could afford to buy a Rolls Royce, right? It's going to be a whole nother 20 years from now. But my point is that I saw one, and whenever I see one, I get a picture because it's a dream. And the owner was coming out of the post office just after I had taken the picture, and I saw him getting ready to open the door. And I said, "Sir, I just took a picture of your car because I have dreams." And that's what I'm trying to share here, is that all of these books help me to stay focused on my dreams. And so my dream of building wealth, coming from nothing and being homeless, my dream is to build wealth. And so I have to stay focused. And I'm going to try and get all of you, stay focused on whatever your dream is. If your dream is early retirement, stay focused on that. You don't need $1 million. Julie retired with $500,000 and she retired early. I retired with $300,000 in my TSP, which is a 401k. I retired with $300,000. Yes, I had my side hustle going, which was my teaching income. Julie has side hustle of YouTube income, which helps her to not have to tap in to as much of her retirement account to make it last longer and give it longer time to grow. If she ever stops doing YouTube, she could just tap into her retirement money, right? But here's my point. Have multiple strategies for getting where you want to be. The old days of I will retire and just never ever lift a finger and just dwindle my accounts down towards zero. Those are old ways. Now that we have the internet, we've got YouTube and other social medias, you can retire to anywhere in the world and still bring in a modest income. Because I teach online, I can go anywhere in the world as long as they have internet, and I can still do my side hustle. And that is part of my future plan. I want to be able to go to Costa Rica. I want to be able to go to Ecuador. And let's just say spend a month in Costa Rica, spend a month in Ecuador. I was just talking to a friend the other day. While Australia's on my list, my friend who's already been there, he and I were talking and we said, someday let's go to Fiji. Do you see what I mean? All of these dreams you can make come true. And so I'm going to get to that a little bit later, but I live on my dreams. I chase my dreams. I don't always get there, but if you shoot for the moon and you land among the stars, that's getting to your dreams. And that's what I do. I shoot for the moon and I land among the stars. So even if I come up a little bit short, I'm still doing pretty good. And one example of that in my life was I thought that I wanted to become an attorney. I had friends who became attorneys, and I went and took the LSAT for the law school entrance exam, and I didn't do all that well. I did very average, which is not good. And so I took a class, and then I took the LSAT again, and my score did not change. And so there was a long waiting period to wait to see if you get accepted into law school. I didn't want to wait. So I just kept taking classes. I didn't want to stop going to college while I waited. So I kept taking classes. Now, I ended up not becoming an attorney, but I did end up getting a PhD. So I did not know what my future was going to be. And even though I went for the moon, I landed among the stars. And that's my, personal story with that. So let's talk about what real millionaires are like. Because I also have the book in my playlist, The Millionaire Next Door. Now, The Millionaire Next Door and The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins are two of the most classic books about either attaining wealth in a very simple fashion that anybody can do. You can dollar cost average into VTSAX. You can do $5. You can, if you have a Vanguard account, you can do fractional shares. Lisa does this with Mumu, but you can do fractional shares of Vanguard funds in Vanguard. So if $5 a paycheck is all you can do in your Vanguard account, do that. VTSAX and chill. Well, the other part to this is knowing that having wealth is not about being flashy. I had to learn that lesson. Every time I got a promotion at work, I bought a brand new car because they gave me an extra, let's say, $200 a month at work. Well, I'm going to take $100 a month of that and up my car payment by $100. So every time I got promoted, we get a brand new car because I thought that's what people did. I did not realize until I read and listened to. I have it both on audio tape, it's on YouTube and my channel, and I have it on a thumb drive in my car so I can play the whole book. But anyway, that millionaires don't look rich. Wealthy people don't look rich. The guy that I saw going to the Bentley, he wasn't all dressed up and flashy. He looked like an elderly guy who had lived a good life. And I mean, I have no idea where you get Bentley money from in my little town, right? I don't know how you do such a thing. But whatever this guy did, he did well. Whatever this guy did, he did well. And so the Millionaire Next Door was pivotal for me because it taught me that I don't need flash, right? I can build wealth quietly. I can build wealth and not be out there showing it off. And I will tell you all, just like I always say that my channel is to help the homeless, I do other things in community service. So for me, it's not all about money, 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 money. What it is it's about giving back to your community and giving to charities that you believe in. The money will come if you do the things that I've talked about before. Make it automatic, right? Out of every paycheck, decide before the paycheck comes in where that money is going to go. I prefer not to see it. Just like I prefer not to write checks, okay? I am a check bouncer. I don't write checks, okay? Know your limitations. Who was that? Clint Eastwood said that. Know a man has to know his limitations, or a woman has to know hers. And so my point is that I have to put my money away in investments before it hits my bank account. Now, with rental income, it's up, it's down, it's variable. If I have positive cash flow, I already decide if I have positive cash flow, here's where it's going. And in 2026, my rental income, positive cash flow, is going towards prudent reserves. That's it. I'm building my emergency fund with any cash flow from my rentals in 2026. For my teaching income, it's going directly into the Roth accounts. Now, you have to know what you're doing. I have a 457 Roth and I have a 403B Roth. The IRS says these are two different types of retirement accounts. Therefore, they each have a $31,500 limit. Now, I don't make that much at my colleges. However, whatever I do make, I can max out my colleges and put the entire year's income into each of those and not run afoul of the $31,000 limit. So, know your taxes, right? Know your finances. Don't just go in blind. So let's look at more from the Millionaire Next Door. Being frugal. Julie and I are frugal. If nothing else, Julie and I are frugal. And so that doesn't mean we're cheap. It just means we're very conscious of our spending. And so I challenge you to be conscious of your spending, especially now we're in the holidays. And I get that a lot of people, spend on family, which is why my renters most likely didn't pay this month. And I think that it happens pretty much a lot for me in December's. I remember when I used to manage a property myself, my first rental property up in Vermont, and it was a duplex. And the young lady next door said, well, she was a single mother. And she said, if I pay you rent in December, my daughter won't have Christmas. And of course I said, no, you can pay me in January, right? Because that's who I am. Well, she never paid in January. One of the rules about rental properties is once a person gets behind, they rarely catch up. And that was my experience. People told me that, but I had to experience it myself. And that's why I do not manage my rental properties. Because if a renter comes to me and they say, oh, my child won't have Christmas, well, of course I'm going to say, well, let your child have Christmas. I'm not running a business. See? So that's what I had to learn, was get out of my own way in my business. So the next book that I have, which I just love, and I talked about Dave Ramsey earlier, is The Everyday Millionaire by Chris Hogan. This was just before he left Dave Ramsey. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I am a softie, and that doesn't work in business. Okay, you cannot be a business owner and not run your business as a business, because a business is not a charity, right? It's a for-profit business. So therefore, I don't run it. I don't manage it. I pay the percentage of the income to the management company every single month, And I've been doing this for at least 5 years now. So, yes, I could have that money if I managed all these properties myself. And then I'm calling plumbers and I'm calling carpenters. I don't want that. Don't want to do that. So I would rather, and I'm still trying to set this up, travel. I have to figure out my mail. And so I will. There are services that will, you give them, it's like a P.O. box, but it goes to their office. They open your mail, they take a photo of it, and they send it to you so that you can just travel the world. Now, 2026, 2027, that's what you're going to see me doing, is more traveling. I'm still going to try to do my Friday morning lives if possible, but if I'm traveling, I may miss one or two here and there. So that's a foreshadowing of 2026 and definitely 2027. So there's that book, right? And this echoes the Millionaire Next Door. It's more updated research. Even though the Millionaire Next Door was written so many years ago, it still applies today. All Chris Hogan did was update the data. And one of the things that I heard last night as I was getting ready for this is that there are more and more millionaires in America every single year. So you may as well become one of them. All you have to do is follow these books, have a plan, find your path, and work your plan, not someone else's plan. Do not do anything that makes you uncomfortable where you can't pass the pillow test and sleep at night. And that's what I do, is I like to pass the pillow test with my real estate investing, which is why I don't flip properties, I don't have short-term rentals. Those are not going to pass my pillow test. Chris Hogan also talks about first-generation millionaires. You do not have to come from money. I do not come from money. But I am building wealth as a